Florida's housing market situation just got substantially worse.
South Florida is now in a condo crisis.
Six-figure assessments that are forcing them to flee.
I was planning on sleeping in my car.
Pricing some families out of their homes.
Konitz has had his condo on the market and has dropped the price several times.
Condo owners across the Sunshine State are in a state of panic as new regulations are being put into place. And this is a result of the Surfside condo collapse that happened back in 2022. These new regulations, which go into effect December 31st of this year, are expected to result in skyrocketing homeowners association fees as well as special assessments. Meanwhile, condo owners and homeowners across the state of Florida are already getting slammed with higher property insurance costs. While it's still awaiting final approval, Citizens Insurance, which is the state's largest insurer, is seeking a 14% rate hike across the board. Not only will this be a significant cost increase for many Floridians, this will also force tens to hundreds of thousands of policyholders to pursue private insurance as a result of Citizens' depopulation program. Citizens is actively trying to cut down on the total number of policyholders through this program to reduce financial risk. And for those who aren't familiar, Citizens Property Insurance Corporation is a state-backed last-ditch insurance carrier for those who cannot find coverage in the private market. But here's what it says in the fine print of Citizens Insurance policies. Only policies that receive an offer of coverage that is more than 20% greater than Citizens' estimated renewal premium are eligible to remain with Citizens. So once this rate hike goes into effect, this will force countless residents to have to pursue private insurance, as they will now be within 20% of the cost of private carriers. So in this video, we're going to be diving into the new Senate Bill 4D, which is what will cause these HOA fees and assessments to skyrocket, and what is causing a state of panic in the Florida housing market right now. Then we're going to be taking a look at some condo listings across the state of Florida to see what kind of an impact this inventory surge is having on price activity. So make sure you stick around to the very end. After thorough investigation of the collapse, it was found that the Condos Association for Champlain Towers refused to conduct major structural repairs in the correct manner, and these repairs were skipped over in order to avoid special assessments. And to better understand what these are, we're going to break down the fees that are paid to a homeowners association. HOA fees or dues are routine fees that are collected typically on a monthly basis to maintain the community, and this money goes towards landscaping as well as other repairs that might be needed. HOA assessments, on the other hand, are one-time fees that are charged by the association for unexpected expenses. Now, a well-managed association is supposed to be putting a portion of the HOA fees or dues collected into a reserve fund for major repair items like the roof, for example. But in the case of many of these associations, especially for communities that are 30 years older or more, the reserves are just not enough. And this is resulting in some massive HOA assessments, some even being in the six figures. Take a look at this example here. This condo owner was hit with a $224,000 special assessment even after the HOA dues doubled from $1,500 to $3,000 a month. And keep in mind, this is for a condo that is worth approximately $500,000. Back to the new bill that is going into effect, this new legislation will force associations to prove that they have enough funds to complete any required maintenance to the buildings. But that's not all. In addition to showing proof of reserve funds, these associations are also required to comply with building inspections in a timely manner to identify potential problems. Post-inspection, these associations will have 1 year to complete the repair items, which will likely result in massive special assessments being charged. And if they don't complete the repairs, this could result in the building being deemed unsafe for human occupancy, which would result in a wave of civil lawsuits. But the icing on the cake here is that buildings that are 30 years old or more are required to have their inspections completed by the end of 2024. Needless to say, this is causing condo owners and associations to panic, especially in buildings that are 30 30 years old or more. And this is resulting in a massive wave of condo inventory hitting the market. And with interest rates as high as they are right now, as well as the widespread awareness of these potential special assessments, there are very few buyers out there for these old condos. And as you'll soon see, this is having a detrimental impact on condo prices for those who are desperate to sell. We'll get right into those listings, but first, a word from our sponsor. As someone who's been creating content full-time since 2017, I've experienced a lot of ups and downs in business. And this, of course, has impacted my personal life too. One of the biggest problems that business owners like me often face is being able to disconnect and turn off their minds in the evenings and on the weekends. After struggling with this myself, I ended up talking with a therapist about how to achieve a better work-life balance. This resulted in me being a lot happier, and it even made me more productive in business. BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video, is on a mission to make starting therapy easier. Instead of having to meet with someone in person, which can be time-consuming and unnerving, you complete these sessions right from your phone or computer. One of the best features of BetterHelp is if you don't connect well with your first therapist, you can switch at any time until you find someone you resonate with. Starting therapy with BetterHelp is easy. All you have to do is sign up and fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. If you're struggling with anything and think you would benefit from a therapy session, click the link down in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Ryan Scribner to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Now let's get back to the video. We're now going to dive into some specific condo listings to see what kind of an impact this inventory surge and new regulations are having on condo prices. Starting out with this studio condo here in Sunny Isles, Florida, which is in Miami-Dade County. Now, this is a prime example of one of these dated high-rises that was built in 1971, and this will definitely be impacted by the new bill in terms of likely skyrocketing HOA fees and assessments after they complete inspections. Now, this does come with some nice amenities like a pool, as well as some other details that we saw like a gym, and as far as the lobby itself, it does look a little bit dated, but it definitely has been updated at some point since 1971. The condo itself is definitely in need of a complete rehab here. There's only 2 photos of the interior. I'm not even sure what this was set up for, but this could just be extra furniture that was thrown around here. It doesn't look like anyone was actually living here. If we look at the details here, it mentions an association fee of $388. That is going to be the monthly fee, so that it actually mentions right here, this is the monthly fee paid for the homeowners association, and that is most likely going to go up after they complete these inspections and get into any necessary repairs that are required. Taking a look at the price activity here, the condo was listed for sale for $220,000 at the beginning of April of 2024, and 1 month later, there was a roughly 10% price cut of $21,000, bringing this just under the $200,000 mark. However, that was not enough to bring a buyer, so they had to do another price cut 2 months later of roughly $4,000, but even at a price of $194,900, it didn't sell for anything close to that. This condo ended up selling at the end of August, just about a week ago, as of filming this video, for a price of $160,000. So that is a total price cut here of 27.3% from the original list price. The next condo here, which is also in Miami-Dade County, is a newly remodeled 2-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom, 1,500 square foot condo, and this is both a very desirable size and also a very desirable area, but you're going to be shocked when you see what happened here with the pricing activity. Despite the fact that it looks all new and shiny inside because of a recent remodel, this was built in 1972. So even though there's excellent updates throughout, what really matters at the end of the day is the age and condition of the building itself that the condo is in. Everything looks really good here as we click through the listing until we get to the photos of the outside of the building. Yikes. This is definitely showing its age here, being built in 1972, and I think there's a reason why there are so many photos of this nice, shiny new interior, and just a couple of photos here of the outside of this very dated building. But if we take a look at the details here, this is really shocking. The HOA fee for this condo is $1,738 a month. So that would add up to $20,856 a year. So even if you bought this with cash and didn't have a mortgage, just paying the taxes as well as your homeowner's insurance and HOA alone, you would be spending at least $2,500 a month. And that explains what we saw happen with the pricing activity. The condo sold back in 2020 for $155,000, and then it sold just about 1 year later for significantly more money, $265,000, and this was right around the reshuffling during the pandemic when prices went crazy. However, it is interesting that this changed hands very quickly. At that point, whoever bought this during the pandemic likely put a lot of money into this remodel that we see in the photos, and this was then listed at $359,000 at the middle of September of 2023. From there, a series of 3 price cuts bring us down to the price of $330,000 by the end of February, and then they removed the listing altogether at the middle of March and relisted it at the beginning of April at that same $330,000 price, likely because they felt that they had overpriced the listing, but my guess is it had a lot to do with those sky-high HOA fees. There were then 2 more price cuts, one at the end of April and then one at the beginning of July, and this ended up selling for a price which is mentioned at the top here of $293,000. And that is only roughly 10.5% more than the purchase price here back in 2021, which is likely when they conducted this major remodel. So I'm guessing that the seller here lost a lot of money after considering their transaction costs and whatever went into the remodel. In terms of the price cut here, from the original list price of $359,000, that is an 18.4% price cut. So this is a prime example of how these HOA fees can absolutely kill a listing, because ordinarily, if this didn't have sky-high HOA fees, and if it was in a really nice building, this would have sold for close to $500,000. However, people are well aware of these looming assessments and just what is happening with these HOA fees absolutely skyrocketing and destroying the value of these condos. The next listing here is also in Miami-Dade County. This is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo in Hollandale Beach. This is a desirable location because it is right on the beach. That's what this map is showing us here. However, once again, looking at the building itself, this is a very dated high-rise that was built in 1970. It does have some nice amenities here, like a putting green, and also has access to a restaurant nearby. The lobby is showing its age, but it was most likely updated since 1970. Now, the condo itself is in need of a remodel here. It is very dated, but it is in good condition overall, so depending on the buyer here, somebody might move in as is. Not a huge fan of this kitchen. It's extremely cramped, especially with this additional counter space over here, but you could make it work if you needed to. The first hint here that this was a distressed seller, or somebody who was a motivated seller at least, is the first line here that mentions reduced to sell. It also mentions here that this comes with a private marina as well as docks with a lift to keep your boat dry, so that is a huge selling point for somebody who has a boat and wants access to the intracoastal for boating activities, fishing, or whatever it may be. It mentions here that it has a monthly association fee of $756, which isn't too high, but it does make you wonder if this is going to go up quite a bit after those inspections take place and those necessary repairs are made. Taking a look at the pricing activity now, it was listed for sale for $299,000 in October of 2023. After 4 price cuts didn't do the trick, the listing was removed in March of 2024, and it was relisted at $249,000, $50,000 less than the original list price. And get this, this was then followed by a series of 18 price cuts, which is crazy. I don't know what the idea was here, but rather than doing large price cuts, they knocked off a few $100s or a few $1,000s on every one of these price cuts that you see. This ultimately took it down to a price of $218,000 in August, and it then sold for $213,000 at the end of August. That's a total price cut here of 28.8% from the original list price. But I want to show you something now that absolutely blew my mind. We can see here it sold for $213,000 at the end of August. But if we take a look at what this owner paid for the condo, all the way down here, we can see that in 2005, they paid $210,000 for the same exact condo. That means that 19 years later, they were only able to sell this for $3,000 more than they bought it for, which means that they actually lost money after considering transactions costs. And that is just 1.4% appreciation appreciation in the value of this condo over roughly 20 years. Condos like this are generally not a good investment, and this is a prime example of exactly how this can play out. We're now jumping over to our first listing in Broward County. This is in North Lauderdale, Florida. It's a 1-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom, 850 square foot. Now, this is a well cared for condo with looks like pretty new laminate flooring here, but it was built in 1973, so it's probably going to have some problems associated with the overall building that it's in. It does have some amenities here like a tennis court and a shuffleboard court, but the only photo here that shows the outside of the building is not great. The listing also mentioned that there are newer laminate floors throughout, as well as newer appliances, but I wouldn't necessarily call those brand new, and that fridge is definitely not new. Now, one thing that certainly affected the value of this condo here is the fact that there is no leasing allowed and no pets allowed. So there's no potential here for investors to purchase this or anybody who has pets. If we look at the property details here, it mentions the homeowners association fee is $557 a month. Once again, that's not terrible, but the concern here is whether or not that is going to skyrocket after these inspections take place for these older condos. If we scroll down now and take a look at the pricing activity, I think you're going to be absolutely shocked here at what this ultimately sold for. This condo was listed for $107,000 in April of this year, and then there was a price cut to $99,999 in May to be just under the $100K mark. However, that didn't do the trick. So there was a roughly $10,000 price cut at the end of May, and this is a time when people get concerned as hurricane season begins towards the end of May in most parts of Florida. However, even that price cut didn't do the trick. There was another $5,000 price cut in June, followed by another roughly $5,000 price cut in July, bringing this down to $69,500. However, this ultimately sold for just $60,000 at the end of August, which is a total price cut here of 44% from the original list price of $107,000. In order for a lot of these condos to sell, the prices have to be extremely favorable for the buyer, and this is a prime example of exactly that. Up next, we have our first listing in Palm Beach County. This is a desirable unit in terms of the size and the location. We're looking at a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, just over 1,000 square feet. However, the kicker is this was built in 1980. It is somewhat dated, but this is a well-maintained unit that would be turnkey for most people who would be looking to buy something like this. And it does come with some nice amenities like the outdoor swimming pool. What's interesting here is if you look at the property details, it mentions that the reserves are funded 100% each year. So this is a case here of a condo where the association is putting aside enough money for those major repair items. However, you're still going to see that just what's going on in the condo market overall severely impacted the price of even this condo where the reserves are in fact funded. Taking a look at the homeowners association section, there is an HOA fee here of $804 a month. It is a little bit higher because this is a 2-bedroom, but still nothing that would be considered high in most cases as long as it wasn't about to skyrocket. And since the reserves are funded, hopefully that wouldn't be the case. Looking at the price activity now, this was listed for sale at the end of May for $375,000, followed by a $10,000 price cut in June, and then an aggressive $15,000 price cut later in that same month. That didn't do the trick, and then there was another $15,000 price cut at the beginning of July, bringing this down to $335,000. However, the eventual sale price here was $295,000, which is $40,000 less than the low end of their price cut, and that took place at the end of August of this year. So you're looking at a 21.4% price cut on a condo, even though the reserves were completely funded. So this just goes to show that all condos across the board are being impacted by this, regardless of the fact that, in this case, that they had the correct amount of money set aside for those major repair items. Everything we looked at so far was recently sold listings, but we're now going to take a look at 3 active listings to see what is going on with their pricing activity. This is a 1-bedroom, 2-bathroom, roughly 900 square foot condo in North Miami, and it mentions here in the description that this is currently rented out for $1,700 a month. However, if we take a look at these details, this has been on the market for 253 days, and there have only been 442 views and 9 total saves. Now, there are no photos of the condo itself, which probably has a lot to do with the renter and privacy concerns that could be impacting this, but it just goes to show how little interest there is in some of these old condo buildings. And it mentions here that this was built in 1969. Yikes. And the outside of the building is definitely showing its age. But get this, the HOA fee is $13.18 a month, which truly makes this uninvestable into. Even if you were to buy this cash, between your HOA fee, insurance, and taxes, it would cost you well above the current rental rate here of $1,700 a month. I don't see any possible reason why somebody would buy this, even if they were to get rid of that tenant. This just does not seem like something that anybody would want based on the HOA fees absolutely destroying any value that this might have had. And if you take a look at the Zillow estimate here, it shows you how the value has been destroyed in condos like this over the last 2 years or so. Taking a look now at the price history, this was listed for sale at the end of 2023 for $149,900, and then you can just see price cut after price cut here with no activity really on the listing. No sale pendings or anything like that. We're now down to a price of $102,500. That's a price reduction of 31.6%, and there's really no buyer in sight here for a condo like this, so you're probably going to see this price come down even further. Now here we have another active listing in Miami-Dade County. This one does have photos of the inside of the condo. This is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom that is just over 1,000 square feet. The kitchen is dated, but it's not bad overall. It looks like it's been well maintained. However, based on this being in Miami Gardens, it's not as desirable of an area compared to Miami Beach, for example. The building and condo are showing its age, especially when we get to the photos of the outside. It does have nice amenities like a pool and a tennis court, but this is not in good condition. And overall, this was built in 1972. Now, if we take a look here at the description of the listing, it mentions here that it's currently undergoing a 40-year recertification with nearly $5 million in total improvements. That, of course, has me concerned about skyrocketing assessments that might be looming after those improvements, unless, of course, they had their reserves fully funded. If we look here at the HOA fee, it is $826 a month, which isn't too bad, but it does make you wonder if that is about to skyrocket after those improvements are made and the reserves have to be refunded. Taking a look at the price activity here, it was listed for sale at $190,000 at the beginning of May, and it has been followed by 4 price cuts, bringing us down to $139,900, and it's still active on the market. We're looking at a total 26.4% price reduction over the course of roughly 3 months. And again, no buyer in sight for this condo. Now, this will likely eventually sell because it's not rented out, and it doesn't seem to be in a state like the previous condo where the HOA fees are just destroying any value. But again, if those HOA fees were to skyrocket, this would destroy any potential value here that this condo has. And finally, we have this condo here, which caught my attention today before recording this video because they just did a $70,000 price cut on this, bringing it down to $130,000. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom in North Miami, Florida. Again, not the most desirable area, but something that many people would be looking to buy into, as it's an area that is definitely gentrifying, and there is potential for value to increase, but probably not with these older condos. This was built in 1974, and it mentions an HOA fee of $397 a month. However, this is the only photo, and taking a look at the outside, this is just not a very appealing looking condo, and it probably is in need of some major repairs. Looking at the listing here, it mentions this is for sale as is, cash only. That's definitely going to be holding it back from a lot of potential buyers or investors. And this has been on the market here for 291 days. However, you're looking at only 227 views and just 10 total saves on this listing. If we look here at the price activity, we can see that there's been some gimmicks being played here. It was listed for $140,000 in November of last year, and then they increased the price to to $200,000 back in February. However, they just cut the price today by $70,000, bringing this down to $130,000. I have no idea if anybody would consider buying this, especially with the as-is cash-only condition. We'll have to see what happens with buildings like this and whether or not buyers step up as these prices continue to come down. That's going to wrap things up for this video, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you made it to the very end, don't forget to drop a like as well as subscribe and hit the bell for future notifications on Florida housing market videos just like this one. And if there is a particular area that you want me to look into in my next video, drop me a comment down below. You can click below to watch my boots on the ground video in the Port Charlotte housing market, where we took a look at some actual listings in person, and I hope to see you there.